Hello, folks, and welcome to our expanded class for this week called The Anatomy of a Spell: Why Intent Isn't Enough. One of the things that we hear quite often in magic, and in fact, that I say very frequently, is intention is everything. Your intent when you go into a spell is vitally important. And most certainly it is, but it is a misspeak. And I'm going to put this forward to respectfully challenge even myself in saying that intention is everything. Intention is going to color the flavor of your spell work and how much it's going to land when you put it out there. But it isn't everything. There are other components you need to take into consideration. Your three primary components of your spell work, when we're looking at the anatomy of a spell, will be emotion, the actions, and then the mechanics. Now, I'm going to give you an example of what that looks like. Now, this is a mundane situation, but it's going to apply to magic as well. Let's say that I really, really want to have my feet rubbed, and that this is something that I'm working up a lot of emotion about. I'm feeling like, man, I really want that. That would really be good. The next step is, how am I going to make that happen? Now, I can want that and want that and want that, but is that going to get it done? Maybe. That depends on me waiting it out and presuming that my husband is in tune enough to me to know, especially since we're both magical practitioners and we're pretty well linked, she needs to have her feet rubbed, and she needs to have them rubbed right now. That does happen. However, if I look at him across the room and say, honey, I'd really love it if you rub my feet, which do you think is going to get my feet rubbed faster? And why? Because I applied action to the emotion. And then the mechanics go into play. The mechanics are going to be something like, well, I'm watching this really interesting YouTube video. Do you really need it right now, or can it be in 22 minutes when this video ends? That's a mechanic of that situation. If my husband says, yeah, I'd love to do that. Here, let me get some lotion to rub them with. That's a mechanic that makes the outcome even better. So that is to illustrate that we have the emotion of what we want. We have the action of doing something, mundanely even, to make that happen. And we have the mechanics of how does it roll out? What are all the moving pieces involved with that happening? And we take that blueprint and we apply it to the anatomy of a spell work. So let's look at the emotion first. When we have an emotion, one of the hoops that emotion will have to jump through in order to have a spell land the way that we want it to is basically the integrity of that emotion. Now, there's a huge difference in going into ritual and saying, listen, I'm in a financially disadvantaged situation. I need to do a ritual to generate some income. And then we have what I would call a justified intention. I need to pay my light bill. I need to make my mortgage. I want to live in a higher financial state of abundance than I am right now. That's the emotion behind that. Versus going into ritual and saying, that person offended me. I want you to kill them right now, and doing the ugly cry. That may not be as justified. So the way that that emotion channels into the spell work becomes something very important, because the balance of, is what you're doing justified versus is what you're doing not justified, is going to determine how much resistance we hit. It's one of the things that determine how much resistance the spell work's going to hit. And that's part of our mechanics. That's part of our rollout. So evaluating the emotion is important, and taking a moment perhaps to do some divination, to throw out some tarot cards, to consult a friend who's a who's a great oracle, or to somehow look into, or at least consider, what we're feeling, what we're planning, and to talk to ourselves or others about, is this something I should do? Now, I've said frequently recently, don't talk your spell work to death. You don't get into this analysis as paralysis situation. You talk to people that you trust, that you care about. You do tarot readings or some other type of divination and decide, yes, this is warranted. Yes, I'm going to do this. Now, as you become an experienced practitioner, you might not have to go through so many of those moves. You can kind of feel, oh, is this just something I'm feeling that I should sit on for a day or two, or should I do this? Should I act on this emotion? Your next step is the action. What does that action look like? Now, that's your actual spell work. And that's where we have our tools and our anchors come into play in order to have a successful spell or have a greater chance that this spell is going to land the way we want it to or better. Now, the tools that we use for different spells or different rituals, a lot of them are based on tradition, and that's fine. Excuse me, I gotta wipe down my glasses real quick because y'all are looking blurry. A lot of our tools are based on tradition, and that's great. And so when we're using different tools in our spell work and in our magic, we want to think about the fact that some of these things are traditional, but we also want to think about, why are they traditional? Usually they're traditional because they work. So don't use an item just because somebody told you to use it, but really think about, when you're using a traditional item, the hundreds of years that may have gone into making that a traditional item and why that's an important item, because that energy is also going to fuel your spell. You might also have items that are non-traditional that mean something to you, and you're going to think about those as well. So you're not just willy-nilly picking items to use in your spell work. You're going to give it a lot of thought. You're going to plan it out a little bit. Magic isn't usually just on the fly. Some folk magic is if you're in an emergency situation, but your most powerful magic is going to be planned a little bit. So think about the tools that you're using and why you're using them. Also, each tool has its own frequency. It has its own resonance that it's going to lend to the situation. And that needs to be in harmony with what you're doing. That's why certain stones are used for certain magical acts. That's why certain colors are more appropriate for certain magical acts. It's got to do with the frequency of the item or the situation that you're using that's going to generate that sympathetic resonance toward the outcome you want to have. Now, here's an example of that. In money work, the most effective candles, let's say, or stones will be green or gold. Now, the tradition of that says our money, in America at least, our money that, if you want to say it counts, it's what we most likely spend, is green or has a green appearance to it. We even refer to it as green or lettuce. When we look at gold, we're looking at a higher level of abundance and worth and prosperity. We're looking at something that relates to sovereignty. So those are different feels for the same topic, which is money and prosperity. If we want immediate money or something that we have fluid in our lives, we are going to more likely want to use a green candle. And that's also going to bring in the ideas of growth and the ideas of abundance, or a fruitful garden, for instance. If we want long-term abundance and prosperity, we're probably going to want to use the gold candle, which gives that sense of sovereignty. Same goal, it's still all about money, but it's a different vibration and resonance. That's why we're going to be very careful about the tools and the anchors that we use in our action of setting the spell. I'd also like for you to take a look at your altar before you start to work the spell. Look at the items you've put together on your working altar. There should be one item at least that represents your goal, what you want to have happen, your desired outcome. Now, this could be a statue of Fortuna. This could be furthering the money spell idea. This could be what I use as a palmistry sculpture that has money or coins on it. It can be a green candle or some type of something to represent what your goal is. And then you get your action items, the ones that are there for the vibration and to enhance what you're doing. So that can be your stones. That can be your candles and the oils that you're using, a mojo bag, whatever action items you're using should be there as well. Now, another part of the action is raising the energy. You're not just going to put all this stuff out there, light the candle, and walk away to have the most powerful work that you can have. You also need to raise some energy to push toward that spell work. Or alternatively, you can channel energy toward that spell work, which is something different. For raising energy, you might use music or dancing or drumming or humming or some sort of vibratory energy that raises what you're doing, an action that raises what you're doing. However, you can also just channel energy toward it. And what this means is just taking a moment, getting in your body, taking breaths, observing what you have put together to be actionable, to create this outcome, feel the energy of it, connect with the energy of it, and then reach up through your crown chakra, connect with whatever your divine higher power is. And if you're polytheistic, you're probably going to want to choose a god, goddess, an Orisha, whatever you're working with, to complement that specific task, that specific goal. You're going to be reaching up through the crown, connecting with them, offering your prayer, offering your appeal, stating your petition, asking for their assistance, and then go into receptive mode to the point even of opening your hands to receive, and feel that energy come into you and move out into the altar area and your spell work items. Now, you do not just shove all of your energy into this. That's a really good way to deplete yourself energetically. Eric and I coined a term called bio-universal energy. We talk about it extensively in our book, Energy Magic, and in a lot of our teachings. And bio-universal energy is about taking the bioenergy, or the energy that's within your life form, and the universal energy of God, goddess, creator, whatever you call the out there, and combining them down around your solar plexus and pushing them out into your magical working. So combine your energy, which is the want, the desire, the personal aspect of, I want this to happen, with the divine energy that's blessing you and fortifying you, and push that into your spell work, your candle, your stones, the accoutrements that you have to make the spell work happen. So that is your energy raising. That is your energy firing, basically. And that's another question. Are you just going to say the spell? There's a very big difference in looking down at your paperwork and saying, I got this really awesome spell from Silver Raven Wolf. It looks great. I'm going to use it. And just reading it off, just rattle, rattle, rattle. This is what Silver says I should do. I'm going to do this. This is my Raymond Buckland spell I'm going to use. I'm just going to say this. There's a difference in saying it and firing it up. You need to feel those words. You need to embody those words. You need to really push the energy of those words as created by whatever elder or friend or mentor laid those words into print for you, and push that toward it as well. This right here, all of this action you're doing, this is the difference in witchcraft and witchcraft. You're putting energy into your work instead of just sitting around hoping you're going to get your feet rubbed. It's a big difference. So that's putting the energy out there. That's creating the spell work and enacting the spell work. And then we let it go to do its thing because we act in faith. We trust that we know what we're doing. We trust that we put it out there in the best possible way. We trust that we spent time determining whether this was a good action or if it was something we should back off of. We've done all the homework on it. We pushed it out there, and now we let it go. So if we're letting it go, the next thing that's going to happen is that energy is going out there into the ether, into the world, into the universe to manufacture and create and bring or push away whatever we told it to do. And that becomes our spell work. And that's when we move into the mechanical phase. What are the realistic applications of the energy that we just put out there? Now, let's follow that theme I gave you before on the mechanics and the example that I used before. Like electricity and other forms of energy, magical energy and your spell work is going to follow the path of least resistance. When it encounters resistance, it is going to attempt to adapt, and it's going to attempt to work through that resistance if there is no other alternative path. So, the amount of resistance is going to determine how effective your spell work is going to be, in addition to how much energy you put into that spell. Those are your operative concerns there. And the trick is, we might know how much energy we're channeling. We might be great at determining how much energy we're raising. We can't know at all how much resistance that spell work's going to hit. We'll know some of it because we're observing situations and we know our perception of what a situation is, but we can't know all the mechanics of it. Now, let's go back to me getting my feet rubbed. I can sit there on my couch and think I want to get my feet rubbed. I can say, honey, I'd really like to have my feet rubbed. Will you do that for me? He's going to process whether it's a good time or not to do that. But let's push that out a little bit more. What if this isn't my husband across the room? What if I'm trying to get my ex-husband who's married to somebody else to rub my feet? That's a lot more resistance, isn't it? That's going to require a lot more energy and maybe have some unexpected outcomes. I've chosen the path of least resistance by asking my husband, who arguably adores me and wants me to feel comfortable, to rub my feet. We also have a 30-year history. My husband knows I'm not going to ask him to rub my feet if I don't really want to have my feet rubbed, because I value his time and his energy. So all of those are mitigating factors, creating more or less resistance to my goal. Let's look at another thing. If I ask my daughter, who lives an hour away from me, to drive her little Prius up here to my house and rub my feet, you know what? She'll do it. She loves me. She probably would do it. But it's going to take a lot longer. She's going to go, oh gosh, I was in the middle of this. I really don't want to do it. There's going to be greater resistance. It's going to require more energy on my part, perhaps more begging and pleading. But you're looking at the difference in resistances here for the same outcome, which is me getting my feet rubbed. Magic will find the path of least resistance. Magic will respond to the resistance that's in the path. Once it's gone out there, it will encounter resistance you don't even know exists. It will require encounter opportunities that you don't even know exist. We don't know the mechanics until it's out there and we watch the outcome. That's the faith part of this. We also need to act in accord. We need to do things to support the outcome that we want. For instance, I needed to work hard to create a personable relationship with my husband that is going to result in him being open to the idea of rubbing my feet. I need to make sure my resume is in order and that I actually apply for jobs in a mundane world if I am doing spell work to get a job. Now, another example I'll use for this is love spells. I get a lot of love spells from people that want me to do work for them to most often bring back an ex. That's a really big deal these days for people. Why? I can't imagine having been in that situation before and having done that before. But it's a big thing. When somebody is asking me to bring their ex back to them, think about the difference in resistance of whether they are in contact with that ex or not, whether they've spoken to that ex in the last 15 years, whether that ex is married to somebody else happily and is expecting a baby right now. There are lots of different hoops this energy has to go through in order to make that happen. What if they had a really horrible blow up of an ending with this ex and this ex now despises them? That's going to make it harder. It's going to take more energy and may not be able to happen if we are not able to continually generate enough energy to influence that. And then you have to sustain it, because all magic has an expiration date. There is no permanent magic. You have to keep putting energy into it, because especially, I'm going to put it out there to say, there's no permanent magic when you are attempting to coerce somebody into doing something else. You can influence them. If they have any inclination in there, it'll fan the flame. But ultimately, they are going to resort back to their original way of thinking, because it's not sustainable. You can't just keep managing the marionette strings on somebody magically for the rest of your life. It's exhausting, not doable, not sustainable. So when we're looking at those paths of least resistance, we're going to see that the mechanics are very important, and are just as important as intention and emotion, just as important as the actual action that you put into it. So that is my explanation for the anatomy of a effective spell, at least, regardless of whether you're doing a full ritual or you're just doing a little folk magic spell. Either way, we want it to land. We want it to do what you need. Make sure your emotion is appropriate and in line, justified. Make sure you're putting appropriate energy and action toward that happening. Use your tools that you have. A lot of people will say, oh, I can do this without tools. Sure, you can, but why would you? Because their vibration inherently is going to enhance what you're doing and give it more energy. So use your tools, get your action going, channel your energy, make it happen, let it go, and then let the mechanics play out. What you see in real time, as far as your feedback from life, will tell you whether you need to keep working this spell. Now, if you know it's a big ask, if you know the mechanics are complicated, if you know there's a lot of crap working against you and a lot of resistance out there, do your novenas or work several times a day, or at least once a day. Keep pushing energy constantly toward that desire until you get it. Or you decide it's not worthwhile anymore. So that is how I view the anatomy of a successful spell. Something I want to show you are some of the altars that I have used and that exist in my home right now for different goals, so that you can see that idea I talked about before of having something on your altar to represent your goal and something to represent the actionable part of what you're doing. So here are some. I'm just going to pop them up here so you can see them. This is a healing altar. And so I have my focus on healing, which is my divine figure that I wish to help me. And then I've got different stones around that are my action, that are fueling the energy of the spell work. So that's the healing. You're going to get flashes here as I'm pulling stuff up. This is a love altar. So we have Venus, we have Aphrodite. They are my reminders of what I'm looking for. The yoni or cowrie shell here actually is to bring feminine energy to the spell work, because I'm wanting to present my best self forward. We've got the red candle. The energy of red is for passion and love. We've got some cleansing agents here to clear away the past. And the spoon here I use for love incense to pour onto a charcoal. So this would be my love altar. Here is an altar for money. Please ignore the fact that Nandor the Relentless and Colin Robinson are on my money altar. They're my God figures, guys. So we've got a money tree here, a fortune tree. We've got a little gold Buddha. We have Lady Fortuna, and we've got the symbolism of the coins and the orange for joy and vibrancy, which I want my money to be more vibrant. In the middle here, it's not there now, but I would put maybe a dollar bill with a lodestone on top of it to draw the money to me, and then I would burn a candle. Now, one thing you probably already know is that a white candle takes the place of any other candle. So if you don't have a green or you don't have a gold, use the white, and it will always substitute for another candle. Let's look at our last altar here, and this is a come to me that I did for a client. And so we've got pink roses that represent the gentle, sweet kind of love, also self-love. We have got the red heart, which is for passion. We have the selenite for transmutation, because she's wanting to heal and recover from a difficult relationship and draw in a happier one. And back here we have stones that are for healing and for passages, rites of passage and transition. So we have what we want, plus we've got the actionable items that are going to help us through. So I hope that you enjoyed this class, and that is what I have for the anatomy of a spell and the reasons, basically my case for why intention by itself is just not enough. I hope you enjoyed it. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.